nights ago, the sky was full of fireworks. In backyards, on rooftops, down by the river, people gathered to mark July 4th, Independence Day. And it's a ritual with deep roots in this country. Freedom and independence, we're told, is something to be celebrated. We light up the sky in its honor. And yet, as the fireworks echoed across the city, I found myself wondering, what if the thing we most need to celebrate right now isn't our freedom or our independence? Because I'm not so sure that we are free. And if we are, or ever hope to be, it's certainly not because we're independent. Langston Hughes wrote in 1936, mind you, "Let America be America again." And he goes on to say, "Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be that great, strong land of love where never kings connive, nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. It never was America to me." And this poem has lived in my bones this past week. Nearly 250 years after the Declaration of Independence was written, we're still wrestling with what freedom really means and who gets to claim it. This past year alone has brought escalating rhetoric threatening the very heart of our democracy. We've watched as voting rights are undermined, as reproductive rights are eroded, as trans lives are legislated and criminalized. The kings and tyrants are still conniving and scheming to crush us. And still, people are rising. Communities are showing up for each other. We're finding ways to organize, to resist, to feed and to care and to protect, especially when systems fail to do so. And what's making that possible isn't everyone fending for themselves. It's something else entirely. It's the relationships that we're building, the trust, the choice to show up not just for yourself, but for someone else. It's the recognition that we are not meant to do this alone, that survival, and more than that, that thriving happens together. One of my favorite quotes is often attributed to the Aboriginal activist Lilla Watson. You may have heard it before. "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come to help, or if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." But even that quote is an example of what it's describing, the collective and not the individual. Because when she was asked about that quote, Lilla explained that it was never hers alone. She had been part of an Aboriginal rights group in Queensland, Australia in the early 1970s, and they had come up with that phrase together. Well, she couldn't remember the exact process of how the phrase had come about. She was quite clear that it was a collective, an interwoven group of activists that had come to those words together. That idea that none of us are free until we are all free wasn't just one person's insight. It was wisdom that emerged from relationship. And that kind of shared wisdom, that collective experience, isn't just something that activists know. It's an everyday occurrence. Neighbors watching each other's kids, strangers passing out water bottles at a protest, friends walking each other home after a long day. The work of liberation in the largest and smallest ways is always about connection. And it's not just human either. Because when we want to talk about how things grow together, about what it means to support one another, to bring our gifts and receive the gifts of others, of course, nature is our first and often best teacher. And one of the most beautiful lessons I know comes from a garden. In many indigenous communities, there's a traditional planting method called the 3 sisters: corn, beans, and squash, grown side by side, season after season. Not in neat, separate rows, but close, intertwined, each bringing something that the others need, each relying on the timing and growth of the others. The corn grows first. Beginning its journey in the late spring, it grows tall and straight, stretching its stalk up to the sun. And beneath the soil, the beans begin to root deep into the earth. Then the leaves emerge, and its vine wraps around the steady corn stalk. And finally, the squash begins to grow low over the ground. It extends its wide leaves over the earth, keeping the ground cool and free of plants and insects that might harm its sisters. And there are too many stories to count told about these 3 plants. Stories where they are sisters arriving in a time of hunger and offering themselves in gratitude. Stories where their relationship with one another becomes a gift for the people. Each of these plants could grow on their own, but they don't thrive that way. Instead, they grow together by design. Together, they protect, support, and nourish each other. They create a system where no one plant dominates and none are alone. Potawatomi botanist Robin Wall Kimmerer describes this garden as more than just practical. She calls it a blueprint for the world, a map of mutual flourishing. She says that if we respect one another, if we support one another, bring our gifts to the world and receive the gifts of others, there will be enough for all. Imagine if our communities worked like that. What would it look like if we too grew in this kind of harmony? What if we put ourselves on the front lines first, like the corn, using our privilege to advocate for others and providing strong guidance and leadership when other leaders emerge? What if we found the places where we were needed the most, like the beans, providing nourishment, new ideas, connections in unlikely places? What if we realized that it is never too late to join the resistance? Like the squash, we spread our arms out to shield our communities and hold the ground firm. Because, beloveds, we need one another. The corn on its own grows tall, but gets knocked over by strong winds. The beans, without support, are tangled and vulnerable. The squash, planted alone, can't keep out the weeds by itself. But together they grow strong. Kimmerer notes that it's tempting to imagine that these 3 are deliberate in working together, and perhaps they are. But the beauty of this partnership is that each plant does what it does in order to increase its own growth. But as it happens, when the individuals flourish, so does the whole. That's basically the opposite of the American myth of the self-made person. There is no such thing. We are all soil-grown and seed-held and rain-raised. We are all already connected. The question really is whether we will recognize it and act accordingly. So let me pause here and name something that might seem surprising in the midst of all this talk about struggle and justice and systemic change. As you'll see in your order of service, the theme for this month is fun. That's the theme every July, and why shouldn't it be? We have beach days and parades and sunshine and summer vacation. But this year, in a summer like this, in a country like this, in the face of rising authoritarianism, climate crisis, and so many lives on the line. But maybe that's exactly the point. Because fun isn't a distraction from justice, it is justice. When systems work to steal our joy, our play, our laughter, choosing to reclaim fun becomes a bold act of connection and care, a way of standing together in resistance. When we laugh together, when we sing together, when we dance together, we are building something that injustice can't touch. Connection rooted in delight. When the squash vines outstretch their leaves in every direction, yes, it's for survival. But it also looks unmistakably like joy. The bean doesn't climb the corn because it's forced to. It spirals upward like a dancer, moving in wide loops across the summer air. The garden isn't just efficient, it's exuberant. And so are we. When we gather together for a church retreat, or throw open the doors to sing, when we bring bubbles to the protest or music to pride, when we pass the mic to our youngest voices and they sing loud and off-key and we cheer anyway, that's not a break from the work. It is the work. It's how we remember what we're fighting for. Not just survival, but a life worth living. It's how we practice sharing space, sharing abundance, and trusting one another. And it's how we heal the myth that we must always earn rest, or joy, or love. Joy reminds us that we don't have to be the same to belong to one another. Play invites us into relationship without pretense. And fun, real, communal, silly, sacred fun, teaches us how to share the world. We don't grow into beloved community by grit alone. We grow into it by dancing barefoot and drawing with sidewalk chalk, by telling stories that make us laugh until we cry, by watching our children leap into the sprinkler while the beans and squash twist toward the sun. Fun isn't frivolous, it's formative. It shapes us into people that know how to celebrate one another. It helps us remember in our bodies that liberation is not just a goal, but a way of being together. So yes, fun belongs here, not as an escape from the work, but as evidence of it. When we feel safe enough to laugh, to play, to enjoy one another's company, that's a sign something's working. That we've built enough trust, enough care, enough community to let our guard down and just be together. 200 49 years ago. This country was founded on a declaration of independence. But independence was never the whole story. Not even then. Not when freedom was claimed for some, but denied for so many. So today I want to offer a different kind of declaration. Not one that separates, but one that connects. Not one that centers individual rights alone, but one that lifts up shared responsibility. Not a declaration of independence, but a declaration of interdependence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created connected, that life, liberty, and the pursuit of justice are only possible when none are left behind, that the strength of a nation and of a congregation lies not in its might, but in its mutuality. We declare that freedom is not isolation, but relationship, that joy is not selfish, but shared, and that safety cannot be bought, only built together. We pledge to be each other's harvest, to be each other's business, to honor the gifts of those who came before, to plant the seeds for those who will come after. We do not go alone. Beloveds, we never have. So let us declare it boldly that we are the corn, we are the beans, we are the squash, we are the ones we've been waiting for, and we are growing something better together. Amen and Ashe. Blessed be. May it be so.